And hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video we'll be taking a look at first updating Meteor because our Meteor version is now outdated and it's a good idea that you have to know in the future how to update your project safely. And then two, after that, is we're going to take a look at implementing the first part of AWS into our codebase. So this is to upload profile pictures and store them, and then to later download them to share them to other people. I'll just reiterate that you do not have to follow along with AWS specifically. You could use free alternatives such as Supabase. I think Firebase has a free solution for it as well. There are other options, you don't have to go AWS. But take note that if you do go AWS, this will occur like 1 cent of cost. So it's not going to be that much, but I know some people are a little iffy with giving AWS their credit card because of all the scary stories of people putting up something small in AWS and it's suddenly blowing up and costing them thousands. But for this scenario, it should be perfectly fine. So again, don't have to follow along with AWS. You could follow along with a different service, or if you just don't care about the profile feature, you could skip this tutorial and you can still follow along with all the tutorials after this. So don't worry. Alright, so let's jump right in. So how do we know that our Meteor version is outdated? First, if we go meteor-version, you'll notice we have 3.1.2. And then when we say npm start, bring this up a bit, you'll see version 3.2.2 is available. That is how we know we can now update. My recommendation is as soon as there's an update available, just install it. Because I've experienced with work in the past that if you just leave that update and you don't bother with it, it is going to become a problem later on, especially once the bigger updates come along and you are not prepared for it. So to know what you have to do to update to Meteor is you go to the changelog. They link it right here. So we go here. Then here is the changelogs for version 3. If you are on version 2, they have their own changelogs that you will need to follow. And if you want to upgrade from version 2 to 3, it is quite a step. But just read all of these highlights, especially the breaking changes. These are very important. But pretty much it's fairly easy to know how to update. So for our scenario, we are on version, what was it? 3.1.2. So here we go 3.1.2 and we can see there were 2 version updates since then. Now you could just go to version 3.2.2. You could simply just update to that. But I have experienced in the past that simply updating to the latest version just causes issues sometimes. Not necessarily breaking changes like from 2 to 3, like that would of course cause issues, but from let's say 2.0 to 2.5, that may cause issues because of the middleman. So what I found was easy to do to make sure that you don't encounter as many issues or that you know which version is causing the issue so you know how to fix it, is go version by version. So here we first go to 3.2.0, we select that, and in here we just paste that in there. Now if you're following along in the tutorial, you may not have an update because I might have already updated it for you. But don't worry, this is just some general knowledge, you don't need to be a pro in this at all. So here we just update to version 3.2. And then we need to take a look at the changes that comes with it. The most important part of all of this is the breaking changes. This is what you need to focus on the most. They may also mention things like, I remember with version 2, they mentioned in a couple updates that, hey, we're going to remove synchronous stuff. You're going to have to make your things async before you go to version 3. And if you follow all of these changelogs, you will be prepared for the latest update once it hits you without needing to worry about bugs. And then just take a look at the highlights. Make note if there's any changes you might have to make based on the highlights. But it should be fairly easy. There you go, Meteor version 3.2. Now generally here is where you just start up your application and just do a simple test to make sure it still works. I'm going to skip that part for sake of this tutorial. It's going to be very long then. I just go to 3.2.2, but take my word for it, I know that previous version works because I filmed this tutorial about 5 times now, so I know it works. So here we go. Now we update to the next version and just keep doing this. This will make sure that when you update, there's no real breaking issues and you know which version is causing issues when you update. And again, make sure to take a look at the breaking changes. These are the most important. Generally, they won't even apply to you because most of these changes are for very specific things. But when it does, it's very important that you know about them at least. All right, and now we're at the latest version of Meteor. If we say Meteor -- version, then you'll see we're at 3.2.2, and we can go npm start, and the site should work just as usual. So here we go, give it a refresh, just make sure it's updated, and there we go. So our profile is here, we can go home, we can make a post. I am cool, make that post, there it is, we can like it. We can delete the old post. Everything works just as expected, no real issues. We can change our names here. Internal server error. Let's see, what is that? Reference error, check is not defined. Okay, that is my mistake. Where is this? Set user profile. So user profile. You go to set methods there. And then this is check. Import that. And if check isn't imported, that also means match should not be. So let's just import match as well. There we go. Now, it should work fine. That's just an import error. You might not even have it if you were sharp. So, Bonvali2, try again, it works. Nick7, there we go. That also works. All right, so everything works as expected. There's no issues. Now you can get started. Now, I'm going to split this tutorial into two parts. The first part is where we'll set up an AWS key and things like that. And then the second part is where we'll actually be implementing the AWS stuff. So first, let's go to the AWS console. And I'm just going to walk you a little bit through it in case you've never used AWS before. First, I'd like you to take a look at the top side right here. Yeah, there we go. Let me give it a bit bigger. There we go. So you should see this United States. You might have a different location here. Just click on that and you choose your location closest to you. The only thing that really changes is how fast the services will be then. Because let's say your application is mainly based in your home country. And let's say your home country is in South Africa, then it doesn't make sense to put a server in America, because now whenever you need to download something, it needs to jump all the way to America just to get that thing and then jump all the way back. Where if you have it in South Africa, if you need to get an image, it can jump to a South African server, which is much closer, and then retrieve that image. So it will just be much faster. You might also not have your country here. You'll notice down here there are 15 regions that are not enabled for this account. I enabled South Africa for free. I'm assuming the rest will also be for free. So if your location isn't there, you can choose it. And then finally, if you decide that your location doesn't matter for this tutorial, that's perfectly fine as well. You can go with the default location. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to switch over to South Africa just for tutorial purposes. All right. And now we can resize it again. So we have two things that are most important. IAM, which is our access to S3. And then S3, which is our bucket, which will store our images. You could store your images in your database, but I highly recommend against that. Databases are not really great for storing images. Some of them do have support for it, like Postgres, but generally speaking, if you want to store some big file, any type of file really, it's best to use a service meant for that. For example, S3 is meant for storing files. It's better than putting it in your database because database storage is also very expensive. Storing a 1 gigabyte file in your database, whilst you could do that, is going to cost you 1 gigabyte of database storage, and that's very expensive. Storing 1 gigabyte of data in S3 is going to cost you pennies. So just using S3 is much better. So you might not have these options here. You just go to search S3. There we go. I'm going to open that in a new tab because we'll be getting to that one. And then IAM. So this is just to access AWS from your website. I'm going to resize it a little bit. All right. Now here with IAM, the most important part, we're just opening up this at the side and then going to users. If you're on a big website, it will look like that. Just go to users. Now, once you're in users, you just create a user. And here I'm going to resize it a little bit because I cannot do with the big things. So here you can give it a name. I recommend naming this user as something that you can quickly understand, because for each of your applications, I recommend you create a user. This is just for security purposes. So if one of your applications gets breached, you don't have to update all of your applications with new keys and details. So here we'll call this microblogging site. Go next. Here you can set up permissions. And here I already have an extra group here, which has the permissions and policies attached that we want. But you could just go attach policies directly, and you want S3 full access. You could specify specific accesses here that you don't want S3 to just have full access to this account. But for tutorial purposes and making it simple, I'm just going to choose the easiest option. So this will just allow us to upload things and download things from S3. Next up, here is just pretty much a review to make sure we're happy with it. Just say create. Alright, so now here we have our user. If we click on our user, you'll notice we have an access key option here. So let's create an access key. This will allow us to actually access everything here. Now you might want to select local code and just follow through their steps. I'm going to choose the easiest option and just say others. So just go next. Then this is just the description. I'm just going to skip that actually. But it's very important that you don't show this to anyone, because any one of these values can at any point just decide, hey, I want to use your details now. So they can just throw it in their application and now suddenly you're free storage for them. So not something you want to show people. Alright, now that we have this, let's go to our site here and create a new file called settings.json. Now before you even write anything in settings.json, make doubly sure that in your git ignore you have that settings.json. You do not want to commit this file. Settings.json is like your environment file. You keep all of your environment variables and stuff in here. You do not want to commit this, because a malicious actor who gets access to this will get access to your AWS, whatever else you store in there as well. So just make sure it's in the git ignore so you don't commit this. And if you ever do commit this by accident and you have valuable data or very important data in there, just make sure to go to AWS and clear your keys, regenerate them and whatnot. You'll also just want to make notes of this. If you lose or forget your secret access key, you cannot retrieve it. Instead, create a new key and make the old key inactive. So pretty much if you forget this or you lose it, just delete it and make a new one. It's not a train smash then. Alright, so you can copy this first one here. And in your settings.json, you want AWS access key. And you just paste that there. And you want another one called AWS secret key, secret access key. And then you just paste this one right here in there. You can also create a public field, and this will be public data that's visible on the client of the site. And for now, we can just say version. And let's make it 0.5.0. Alright, now that you have your settings.json set up there, we can go and create our bucket. Now here, I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller as well. We'll just create a bucket. And here you can call it something. So let's go micro blogging site. And I think all of this is pretty much fine. You can just accept all of it and just say create. Alright, now we have the bucket. Let's just take that name there. And here with public, we'll just say AWS bucket. This is in public because on the client side, we might want to download things directly from AWS. If you don't like putting your bucket here, you could put it on the server and then send it from the server to the front end whenever you need specific data. Don't recommend that too much, but you could. AWS region, because each of your application might be in a different region, so it's good to just set what region it is in. You don't need any other data because we already have the access keys here, so we don't need any of the other data. I'm in AF South 1 here for this bucket. So let's just throw that in there. And that's that. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all again in the next tutorial.